morning as well. So I can't tell you how excited I was to know that Carole Boyd, aka, who has created that fantastic, I think, best character in the whole of the Archers, Lynda Snell, is here and has given up her time for us today to do a reading of her own selection from the anthology. And Carole is just so well known for her Archer's work, but also, can you believe that she's also all the female voices in Postman Pat? I think probably, looking around at the demographic, we may have more Archer's listeners here than Postman Pat. Who am I to judge from appearances? I'm sorry, a piece of stereotyping, which I really regret. But it's really wonderful of Carole to be here because as well as her Archer's work, she's in such demand. She's won prizes for her fantastic audiobooks. She puts together words and music recitals, which she does all over the country. And she also, very fittingly for being our guest here, she runs her own poetry group, which raises money for Water Aid. So Carole, we are hugely thrilled that you've come today. Thank you very much indeed. We're so looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your numerousness, and how lovely to see you all. So I'm going to start with the wonderful lady who, of course, is your patron. Is it patron or is it more than that? She sort of invented it. She encouraged you, I imagine. Sorry? Founder and patron. I knew it was more than just patron. Thank you, Anna. And it's called Water. And I love that because my poetry group that was mentioned is actually called Words for Water. And we read poetry and share poetry and perform poetry, and the proceeds go to Water Aid. Your last word was water, which I poured in a hospice plastic cup, held to your lips, your small sip, half smile, sigh. Then, in the chair beside you, fell asleep for 3 lost hours, only to waken thirsty, hear, then see a magpie worn in a bush outside, dawn so soon, and swallow from your still full cup. Water, the times I'd call as a child for a drink till you'd come, sit on the edge of the bed in the dark, holding my hand, just as we held hands now, and you died. A good last word. Nights since I've cried, but gone to my own child's side with a drink, watched her gulp it down, then sleep. Water. What a mother brings through the darkness still to her parched daughter. I've marked all these, and there's lots that I've had to pass over and not wanted to, but I know we're on a time boundary, so bear with me. I've chosen this one, This Love, by Nick Drake, because I just think it's so beautiful. I looked for somewhere to leave this love. I offered it to strangers in the street who backed away, cursing, casting curses and coins. I wrestled it into a black bin bag and drove it out of town to the very dark highway and abandoned it where the cars hissed and blared. I thought it might lose itself on the wrong side of the forest or end as roadkill. But this hollow dawn, it was back, scratching at the window glass. Will you feed its insatiable hunger and stroke its wet head when it cries in its dreams? Or will you send it away when it stares deep into your eyes, begging for its life? This is a poem by Zena Edwards. Dear Diary, it's called. Dear Diary, a crazy lady's blues song. I'm taking liberties here. There is this song I want to sing you all. Not that my voice is good, it's cracked. Got broken when the moon looked away. Don't blame her, she's not that easily distracted. But there was a real war going on one time. She turned for a moment to see what the noise was. When she did, my top note shattered. I was sore for a day or three, but I still remember the melody. So don't expect clear water. All I got is mottled syrup, clotted near the aorta of a harmony. But sweet, liable to break your heart still. Yeah, I believe I can say that with humble authority. These lips have chapped from all the hurricanes I've blown, all the circle songs that have raised the dead who camp in my backyard. But I'm not ashamed of those angels, not me. I got a song I want to sing for you, something I'm proud of. I'm a lady with a blue song, a blues song, made of diamonds, ash, and water, and golden syrup. Now, I get very nervous and twitchy at this moment, as will somebody else in the audience. Reservist by Martin Figura. I just wait for a second. This is a super poem because, well, it applies to so many men in the audience in some way or other who will have been touched, directly or indirectly. Reservist. The fusted kit bag, chucked from the attic, stands perfectly upright for a moment before the kick of gravity sends it thumping down the stairs to lie prone on the hall carpet against the front door. 242-72234 Private Figura, stenciled in cracked white paint on its side. Emptied out, the dank camouflage contents are for a younger, thinner, less creased man, his knees and elbows scuffed by chalky grit from the South Downs. His hands reek of gun oil, eyes squinting down the sights at the white patch pasted to a plywood man's chest, waiting for the thin-lipped captain's command to fire, for the crack to his cheekbone as the shock echoes back, and the pitted sand dances. This is a poem by Paul Francis called Langley Chapel. And there's a sort of, it's not a John Betjeman type poem, but it reminds me of his love of churches, if you know what I mean. Up through the short gold stalks, a grey stone submarine has inched above the ground. Switch off your phone, your stored anxieties. You will not need them here. Feel free to tread on tiles whose rich red randomness obeys no pattern but delight. Around you, plain white walls. Ahead, the altar and its benches wait, aligned in the geometry of prayer. But there's no rush. Take time. The solid pews can bear the weight of patient sinners, doubtful knees. Over your head, the laths and beams provide a coracle of care. In here, you are protected. Bon voyage. This is an interesting poem by Sarah Gillespie. It's called Public Prosecution. You wouldn't know love if wild horses pulverized your sinoatrial node into hallucinogenic stardust, delivered it on a diameter spoon into the mouth of Aphrodite, and broadcast the whole event live on Smooth FM. You wouldn't know remorse if it chewed your earlobes in an orange room packed with unpacked suitcases, shredded litigation transcripts, and the autobiography of Judas Iscariot serialised on a distorted tannoy next to your bed of nails. You wouldn't know respect if Otis Redding was your gardener. You wouldn't know joy if a convoy of hot air balloons swept you across the solar system and dropped you on a moonlit port in time to sling champagne bottles against a ship carrying sherbet to the Benny Goodman Orchestra. You wouldn't know longing if 16 orphans stitched you into a corset of viola strings and plucked you in E minor. You wouldn't know I miss you, because I never tell you that I do. This is a poem by Chrissy Gittings, and it's called Gales of Laughter, and it's written in a very strange format on the page, and it is really Gales of Laughter, so I hope I can pull it off. Okay. Thank you. This is a poem by Anne Gray called Birds. And I love its circular movements. It meanders, but it always comes back home. On Sydney Street, someone's dropped a paper bird. I can make those. The crispness of the fold defines its flight. That and the way you grasp it. I once sat with a dying child, filled his room with yellow birds from folded X-ray paper. He gave them eyes and coloured spots across their wings. Retinoblastoma. For years, I dreamt of marker pen on naked heads, of basements where hushed beds passed at night, hung about with fluids, the chill, the dark, the roaches. Night Sister's outdoor cloak, two of us with torches to check the sick, were sleeping. Some things stay. The way a blackbird sings through all the gaps in rain. The pulsing smell of sun on London pavements. The art of folding paper. And I like this one by A.E. Harold, The Moth and the New Moon, because the pictures are so clear. They are in all these poems, but this is very subtle and also very crisp at the same time. The paper globe rattles, rustles, and falls silent. This is my study. This is late in the evening. I look at the me looking back at me from the window. From behind him, endless blackness looks in on both of us. The lampshade bursts back into brief life, dry paper shaking, a black-grey flutter inside. I wonder how moths were before the light bulb. How did they feel, unable to get to their goal, the old bright moon, untouched, in orbit? Is life more fulfilling these days? These nights, when the lights within their wing beats reach? No moth knew this stark white warmth before. The paper ball rattles, rustles, and falls silent. This is a poem by John Killick, The B&B at the End of the World. On arrival, go to the shed at the bottom of the yard and on the keypad enter the personal code on your card. In a pigeonhole, you will find a named box containing a set of keys which will open all locks. Leave your loose change and your credit card on a plate and don't forget to check the expiry date. Hungry? Then go to a cupboard in the diner and find your last supper. But be sure to wash up the china. You may choose to view your life story on the wide screen, but please leave everything as if you had never been. When you have reflected upon all you ever did, climb into the box provided and close the lid. It's wonderfully black, isn't it? It's interesting because so many of these poems are way out of the league of Lynda Snell. I mean, I'm just thinking what she would make of them, and she'd probably sort of pass over them in some very discreet and obtuse way, which really, she'd probably hand them to Jim, actually. He's the academic in the Archers, isn't he? See what you can do with that, Jim, you know. Translate it into Latin or something. This is by Nadia Kingsley, and another one of these lovely circular poems. It's called Creeping. A young girl colouring in the sun lays her wax crayon down as mother calls her to the lawn to lift chin, hold golden flower under, spin myth, then watch for fear transformed to spreading smile. To the girl as woman with family of her own, science warns of ranunculus repens, but she ignores how this creeping buttercup sucks out soil elements, weakens rosemary, quietens dandelion, how its mustard fumes burn eyes, then aim to suffocate. Though glossy, heart-shaped petals fall, she tightens her grip, tilts it this way and that, by the child's soft skin to find her spotlight, whispers the pretty mantra. A smile. So it goes on. This is a poem by Liz Lockheed. And again, I'm going to take liberties. Trouble and Hope. Trouble is not my middle name. It is not what I am. I was not born for this. Trouble is not a place, though I am in it deeper than the deepest wood, and I'd get out of it, who wouldn't if I could. Hope is what I do not have in hell, not without good help, now. Could you listen? Listen hard and well to what I cannot say except by what I do. And when you say I do it for badness, this much is true. I do it for badness done to me, before any badness that I do to you. Hard to unthankle this, but you can help me. Loosen all these knots and really listen. I cannot plainly tell you this, but if you care, then beyond all harm and hurt, real hope is there. This is a poem by Jill McCoy. By Jill McAvoy. And when I first looked at it, I remember a poem I read when I was a child and was fascinated by, a poem by Ruth Pitter. Some of you may have heard of. She's a sort of slightly overlooked poet of the last 50 or so years, more, and has written some really lovely stuff. And the poem I remember of hers best, and introduced me to the rest of her work, was called The Bat, and started unholy eldritch something. I've forgotten the last image, but it was three things. Lightless, unholy, eldritch thing. It was the word eldritch. Fascinating. You immediately find out what it means, because I've never seen it used anywhere else. Might be in Beowulf or something, but you know, it was so old, it was so Anglo-Saxon or even earlier, and very, very descriptive. So this is Jill's poem, Visit from a Long-Eared Bat. Fierce winds have flung you in from the night, hurled you against the veranda wall, a spatter of black mud. You cling. We greet your strange arrival with delight. I see the fish hook on your wing, the thin veins on its leathered fan as you splay it out, then draw it in, your soft wax melting in and out of shape. Your ears, black spathes of arum, shiver to the echo of a moth in flight. You've moved right round. Now, upside down, could plummet any second like a fat ripe plum, splatter on the stones below, stain them with a seep of slow dark blood. The night is lashed by wind, clouds claw across the moon's white face, a moth blows in and batters at the lamp. Your sudden shadow shears my head. I love ballet, I love dance. And this is a poem by Mark Neal called Dancer. She doesn't walk, she flows. Each step is like an ocean swell, each turn a wheat field swept by the wind. She was born to be in perpetual motion, grace and precision, found harmony in her frame. Every movement measured, photogenic, from hair that falls like ribbons, gift wrapping her face, to the perfect point of each toe. Even her eyes dance. This poem I kind of had to come to terms with and get to grips with more than some of the others. It's by Matthew Oates, and it's called Green Man. And it's so intricate. If I could but more than sense you, sudden in a wisp of smoke wood, rising from fire within a hidden glade, the invisible face of the greenwood, flitting between mind and focus, betwixt countless dancing leaves, foxglove bells or sweetbriar scent, carried on the vibrant hum of insects, hoverflies through evening sunlight, midges dancing joyously to death, in every one of these, you might yet be, but only in the half-seen moment, when the last swallow passes high as the first bat flickers stilling air, or the spark explodes in vibrant flame, your spirit so rampantly appears, then disappears. Inside wooded time, in and out of mind and leaf and fire, there and not there, yet within me, leaping the dimensions of inner life. I think that's wonderful. I don't know if I conveyed my wonder, but it was just so other. You know what I mean? I don't know how I'm doing for time. Am I I've lost sense. All right, okay.
I think if we took a vote, everybody would go, yes, you're fine.
Oh, thank you. Now, why did oh, yes, this one is called Miriam Aubrey, and it's called it's from Voices Out of the Eaves of Kilpeck Church. I don't know if that's sort of somewhere local, probably. But I think of it as representing any old Gothic-y kind of church with gargoyles and finials and things, you know, that might be Victorian, or might be very old and worn and have a sort of personality and a life. And here they are. If we appear to tremble, it's an illusion, a gift some have been granted by default. To drum up a little breeze, to whistle for the wind, to force our feathers to grow inwards. And when it seems our beaks are drilling air, we're merely splitting raindrops, pleading with the elements. We are no grandmother's blessings, though I for one would give my left ear to do your hoovering, my right to do your ironing. Yes, I'd like that, to be set in stone. Ah, me, as I count those wilting poppies through July, I would be glad of a small distraction, to crack a few eggs maybe, you know, bit of a jolly, some other masquerade to cry you a moon, to sob its face into that silver cut above the cattle shed, to harvest you a field of stars, to bounce them off my stone chest, setting them to dance along the fine line between earth and sky we call rooftops. A stone myth that never sleeps, nor edges further than these shouldered slates. I rail at my maker, become history before me. The sun, another Saturday. Comes 6 a.m, a crowing hen, and here again, a whispering gallery. Eyes where our ears should be, our broken mouths gathering all manner of dirt. It's angry, isn't it? It's angry and it's bitter and it's sad too. On a lighter note, a poem by Muriel Passy called Dotted Notes. They dance glass-slippered through history, never home by midnight. During the day, they gather peascods with Sir Roger de Coverley and Mr. Salinger in country gardens. In France, they foot it featly, gilt and grisaille through the mass. Briefly, beneath the flat feet of tone-deaf, purblind Puritans, they lie, perforce low, but burst out, irrepressibly restored to reach their shepherd's hay day. Clear-eyed, they skip through the silver Palladian air, elegant, entrancing, enchanting, silken-skirted grace notes, glimpsed and gone again, a fleet reflection, then a tiptoe diminuendo. Oh, I love this. This is a poem by Emma Purshouse on being reincarnated as a ringlet butterfly. Eric emerged to find he was small, uniformly brown, almost black, destined to live in damp woodland rides, inflicted with a slow and feeble flight. He warmed his wings, paused for thought, bypassed the brambles, headed straight for the St. John's wort. This is Christopher Reed's The Cyborgs. I don't like all that stuff, you know, all that sci-fi stuff, and it leaves me cold, but this is rather clever. While most of their literature remains at a primitive stage, their love poetry shows remarkable development. I believe this could prove a golden age. Addressing the pains and other malfunctions of love, their lyric poets, male, female, hermaphrodite, write with a precision and force that put to shame their merely human counterparts. Beside them, we tend to look either callow or coarse. Their super-equipped brains, too, have allowed them to master the most intricate verse forms, rivaling the achievements of Languedoc. I have seen one knock off a double inverted sestina faster than you and I would take to produce a rhyming couplet. And it contained both more heartache and more bites of sexto-technical information than all the sonnets of Shakespeare. Their flights of eloquence appear unconstrained. They are young, they are immortal, and it's early days yet. This poem is by Susan Richardson. It's another lady poem, but different sort of lady, and I'm not quite sure what or who she is or represents. It's called Lady Sings. Lady sings. She sings from what's known as the dead zone, the place the sun can't reach, oxygen leached, too deep even for skeleton ships, for carcasses of whales. She sings in spite of the crush of the sea and the writhe of its creatures, giant tube worms, blind shrimp, bloated coffin fish, and those nameless ones, all mouth and gut, that consume whatever they crash into. She sings with a heat the scientists won't believe as they squint at their pages of data. Her voice is mineral rich, volcanic rift, billowing black smoker. Is it the end of the world? Dunno. This is great. Mandy Ross. Infinity plus one, or that poor sod. When things get really bad, I think of that poor sod who's got it worse. All of this and a sore ass too. His toilet floods, his money's gone, his cat ate his goldfish. Infinity plus one. This shrinks my own calamity and cheers me up tremendously. See, that's his mitzvah. He'll get a blessing for making me feel better. Man plans, God laughs. So should I curse as things can only get much worse? No. When they do, I won't be fretting. That's my turn to earn a blessing each time I cheer up some poor sod who hasn't got it quite as bad. This is a poem by somebody called Spoz, or Spots, aka Giovanni Esposito. It's called Pondering Over a Pick-Me-Up Poem. The sort of poem I'd like to read if I were feeling low is not the kind of poem done by Edgar Allan Poe. Something jovial, jaunty and gay, if you get my gist. Like chocolate, but in poetic form. I'd better write me a list. Here goes. Sylvia Plath ain't good for a laugh. Though if she's for you, don't avoid her. Albert and the Lion will give you a grin, though it's a little bit schadenfreude. William Shakespeare may have what it takes here, bringing some light to your dark. I Wanna Be Yours is a pretty safe bet. That's a poem by John Cooper Clarke. Jolly John Hegley wrote about specs for all of us short-sighted squinters. You're bound to be moved and possibly soothed by Charles Causley's Timothy Winters. Chirpy Pam Ayres told tales of the troubles that lack of tooth hygiene can bring. And Lewis Carroll gets you over a barrel with his very strange Jabberwock thing. Wilfred Owen may not get you going, unless you like war, death and guts. You can't go wrong on the Ning Nang Nong, 'cause Spike was a little bit nuts. Ben Zephaniah was born to inspire. You know that he writes from the heart. And a Scotsman called Burns stirred our concerns when he wrote Ode to a Fart. So, if you're in need of a pick-me-up poem, because everyone hurts sometimes, take my advice, read one that's nice, and smile if the flipping thing rhymes. Oh, this I love. We're nearly at the end, so this is a sort of, it's a celebration of what you all are about in this festival, and those of you who are poets amongst us particularly. And from my point of view, it's so true. It's such a relief from, well, I've just been working in Birmingham, I'll say no more, and I've just come from hanging out with the first line of this poem, and it makes so much sense. Okay, Hanging with Poets by the anti-poet poet. We've spent time in the company of thespians who dropped names with their every camp breath. We've been anecdoted to distraction. We were air-kissed and darlinged to death. We've been out with clowns and with jesters, all manics and miserable blokes, and they bitched and they sniped at each other, each the butt of the other man's jokes. We indulged a band of rock minstrels. We invited their egos to tea. We pandered and pampered. They primped, preened and tantrumed while admiring themselves on TV. So we're quaffing with wordsmiths and ranters. We're quaffing with poets and bards. We're wrapped in the presence of writers of the lyrical rebel vanguard. We've known doctors and lawyers and self-made employers. They've all shown us the world as they know it. Generals and bureaucrats spouting figures and facts, but we'd much rather be hanging with poets. We've heard statisticians and bent politicians say, this is the world as we know it. We've been cleaned out by bankers and footballing wankers, so we'd rather be hanging with poets. Yes, we're broke, but we're hanging with poets. We're broke because we're hanging with poets. We're pissed, but we're hanging with poets. So, almost over. Oh dear. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, that really should have been the finale. But let's have an encore. It's The Man in the Moon, and it's strange. And there's a quotation from Endymion by John Lilly. There liveth none under the sun that knows what to make of the man in the moon. An old grey man carrying a lantern across the sky. Do you expect me to smile? To light the night and warm lovers' faces with beams of white? Mouth like a crater, eyes trying to focus but never acknowledging the metamorphosis. Crescent, half, full, a man mysterious and laughing. A child who imagines that I am cheese. Huh. I am neither of these things. And that was by Tom Wentworth.